morning, and thank you for the invitation, the Silicon Valley Humanist community. It's a pleasure to be back here again, invited by you to speak. Every time I get an invitation, I get excited because I think, okay, what can I contribute especially to the humanist community, but also to the humanist movement, which is worldwide, the humanist movement. And I'm a humanist, and it's really great to see that, we have something to offer the world in terms of making the world a better place. And so we have a lot to contribute. And so it's my pleasure today to contribute to this community and to the entire humanist community all over the world, since this is being recorded and is going to be shared with people. A topic that I think is really relevant to today's complexity in the world today. So when I was invited to speak, part of what I do is teach leadership. I go all over the world and I teach leadership. I was just in Chile last week. In Chile, South America. It's nice and warm down there. It's the opposite. They're getting into the warm season there. Here we're getting into the cold season. So I was speaking down there on the new paradigm of education for children. That a lot of people are very much interested in how do we educate children for the future. And the future is already here, yet the education system is back in a lot of places, like in the 18th century. So we need to contribute, and I think the humanist movement has a lot to contribute in terms of our thinking, philosophy, to creating better human beings and a better civilization. So with that, for this invitation today, the topic is saving intelligence for navigating in our world. So the invitation, let's see what we got here.
Grab the space bar, see if it does.
Okay, the space bar?
Arrow keys, right there, right here.
Okay. No, just don't do it. Let me see. It seems I pressed the right arrow right there, right? Hold on, we'll take a second. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No problem.
That's because
All right. We'll keep it moving.
it's because the day pass Wi-Fi screen instructed.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's good.
Again, click the cancel.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So the purpose of the invitation today is for us to use the seven intelligences as a tool for navigating ourselves and navigating in our world and designing better futures. So the concept of navigation, as you probably know, it's sailors are in the ship, they want to go west, they need to know which way they're going, they usually have a compass, and they say, okay, are we going west, south, east, west? So the concept of navigation also applies to not only our personal lives, but applies also to our collective communities. Where do we want to go? How are we navigating ourselves into the future that we desire? Not just the future, any future, because most human beings just navigate without knowing, and they wind up in futures that they may not desire. They may not be good for humans, and we've seen that in history, right? And we see human beings getting themselves in trouble with civilizations that have gone extinct. No one asked the Mayans to say, well, do you guys want to go extinct? Yeah, we want to go extinct, right? The Mayans didn't want to go extinct, but they went extinct to a great degree. They left pyramids, etc. So we could say, what about us in the 21st century? Where are we headed? And who's taking us there? And what role do we play as conscious human beings? What role do we play? That's why I teach evolutionary leadership, because I think every one of us could be a leader in shaping the future that we want to create, as opposed to just going extinct, like a lot of civilizations have. So that's the invitation. How do we use those 7 intelligences? We got the same problem again. It keeps popping. Tell me what to do so that you don't have to.
Just cancel.
So do I need to cancel when it comes up?
Yeah.
Just go.
Well, that may have done it for good.
That may have done it. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is go through this presentation. There are 7 basic intelligences, and they probably take me, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then we'll leave some room for discussion. Make sure if, your questions, your comments are really welcome. I look forward to them. So some people in the consulting business, I work with organizations, teach leadership, and this acronym, VUCA, is very common nowadays in organization. People say, we live in a VUCA world. And, first is, what are you talking about? We live in a VUCA world, right? So, and this gets thrown around like one of those corporate gossips of acronyms. So VUCA means volatility. The world is volatility. The markets are volatile. We're living uncertainty. We don't know where we're going. We live in complexity. The world is getting more complex all the time. And it is getting more complex more of the time. So there's some truth to this. And we also live in ambiguity. What's the right choice? How do we know which president to vote for example? What is global warming real or not? So in this VUCA world, from my perspective, I say that we live in the industrial age, and we are facing not only a VUCA world, but we are facing several threats as humanity, as a global civilization. So one of those threats, and there's a few up here, diminishing resources, we're losing biodiversity, species extinction, we're losing rainforests, we're losing topsoil, etc. And we're also in what some people call overshoot, this concept of overshoot. That was a concept that was coined by a systems scientist, Donella Meadow, who has written several books. She was one of the people that contributed to the Club of Rome prediction back in 1968. She was one of the authors, Donella Meadow. And she said, if we keep going where we're going, somewhere in the next 25 years, we'll be in overshoot. And so we already done that. As a civilization, as a planet, we are now in overshoot, which means that civilization is living beyond its means. So we are using more of the resources than the earth is capable of replenishing. So yeah, we keep taking wood out of the forest and fish out of the ocean, but we're depleting the resources. So that's what it means by overshoot. Also, increasing trends put us in dangers such as global warming, CO2, global capitalism, rising seas, etc. So when you look at this from a systemic perspective, it puts us in this kind of trajectory. Over here, these 2 arrows show this trajectory where we may wind up in some real danger as a civilization. So can we do something about that? Yes, we can. So the good news is that there are plenty of people who are looking at organization, and people are saying, what can we do about it? So I think humans are waking up to this threat. But not only the threat, but also what can we do about it? So from my perspective of evolutionary leadership, okay, we are here in this industrial age, epoch, we're facing an evolutionary crisis, a bunch of world problems, but what we want to do, ideally, is transition to a future, an epoch B, which I call the sustainability age, or some people may call an ecological civilization. So when some people, especially I have a friend back in the East Bay, Jeremy Lent, who's written a wonderful book about, can we create an ecological civilization? And the answer is yes, we can. Now, we need people to commit to it. You know, it won't happen just by itself. So, again, there are great thinkers out there coming up with better visions of the world than the one that we have here today. So I'm optimistic about that, but we cannot just wait for it to happen. We have to contribute to make it happen. So how do we do that? How do we transition from A to epoch B? Well, we can do it by at least influencing or changing certain systems that operate in this complex world. So for one thing, we can influence the worldview that we have. So that's one thing that is doable. And I think everyone who is in this room, at some point in your life, you say, I think I want to shift my worldview. I want to improve it. I want to look at the world from a different perspective. And I think humanism offers a good worldview, a better worldview than we have, let's say, 1,000 years or 500 years ago. So we can also influence culture. We can influence institutions. We can definitely influence the economic system that we have. Most critics would say global capitalism needs to transform itself. It cannot continue to just do what it does. And then we can also influence technology to make it more useful at the service for humans. So those 5 systems are within our means of influence. So when people say, can we shift those systems? Yes, we can. It's going to take work. It's not easy, but we can do that. So the topic of today would be the 7 intelligences, and how can we use those 7 intelligences not only to guide our personal life, but also to influence the civilization going forward. Okay, so we have, if you want to take on that evolutionary challenge, why not? So the first one is called evolutionary intelligence. And here I say we need to understand evolution. We need to understand the evolution of, especially of the sapiens, the animal that we are, the sapiens. What kind of creatures are we, you know? And we are the kind of creatures that have human natures. So we have human natures, and we can ask ourselves, how does the brain-mind work? Now, the good news is that we have a lot of neuroscience. We have more knowledge about the brain than we ever had before. We know more about the human capacities. And also that we humans are highly malleable. We are adaptable creatures. We are highly malleable, adaptable creatures. Now, we can adapt for good or bad, right? So we have a choice. How do we want to adapt ourselves as humans? How can we develop our positive propensities? Because we have negative propensities, like, for example, our tribal mind, you know, is a negative propensity that says, my tribe first, your tribe second. You know, how could we evolve beyond this tribal propensity that says, first I have to feed my own tribe, and if there's anything left, well, I'll share with you, or we'll kill you if there's not enough left. I recently saw a movie on my plane trip back from Chile. An interesting movie. It's called Alpha. Anyone see it? Alpha? You know, Alpha stands for the alpha of the species, right? So this movie Alpha is about a wolf. It's about a wolf, and Alpha, the lead of the wolf pack. In this movie, which takes place 20,000 years ago in Europe. So you could imagine it takes 20,000 years ago in Europe. You know, there's a tribe, and they all have their spears with their stone, the arrowheads, and they're going out there on a hunt, and to hunt. like they did 20,000 years ago, and they're going to get some big animals to eat. But then there's a pack of wolves. And the story basically is that, that one of the young hunters gets lost, and the pack of wolves goes after him, and he sort of hurts the alpha wolf, with his spear. So now, he's there kind of wounded, and the animal is wounded. The two of them are wounded. So now, what are they going to do, right? They're in the middle of nowhere. So the young man begins to care for the wolf, begins to, take care of his wound and care for it, and eventually they both develop a friendship. And it's interesting because I read a novel one time about how humans domesticated the wolf, right? And because eventually they became dogs. So anyone here has a dog? Anyone has that? You have a dog? Well, dogs used to be, as far as I know, used to be wolves. So we domesticated them. So this movie is about the relationship of how this young man over time domesticated this wolf, alpha, and became friends and helped each other and brought him back to the tribe. It's a beautiful story, but it's also an evolutionary story because it shows that we humans have these positive propensities to go beyond the tribe, to reach out and make connections, etc. So the other final point here is, how can we become evolutionary agents for a saner world? So that would be the final challenge from an evolutionary intelligence perspective. So there's plenty of good material out there about how the brain works, how the mind works, what about our human natures. This title, What Kind of Creatures Are We? I took from a recent book by Noam Chomsky. It's a very thin little book. It's called What Kind of Creatures Are We? It's really nice. It's really amazing that Noam Chomsky, who's well-known philosopher but also scientist, describes human natures. And I think we humanists need to be grounded in human nature so that we don't kind of fool ourselves. We have propensities for good and for evil, so we need to shape that. So moving on, so this is the first intelligence. Now here's a quote that you may have seen it before because I think I used it in a previous presentation by an evolutionary thinker, Jonas Salk. He says the most meaningful activity in which a human being can be engaged is one that is directly related to human evolution. This is true because humans now play an active and critical role not only in the process of their own evolution, but in the survival and evolution of all living things. So we have arrived. This is Jonas Salk, a scientist who has the Salk Institute down there in La Jolla, California. If you ever go to La Jolla, California, there's a beautiful building facing the Pacific Ocean, a building that won some kind of awards, an amazing building. And it's called the Salk Institute. That's where he lived until he passed away. But they continue to do biological and evolutionary research. The good news with Jonas Salk is, after being a scientist, a biologist, he became a philosopher, a humanist. And this is his guiding words for us, to use evolutionary intelligence and put it to a role of taking care of the process of our own evolution, but the survival and evolution of all living things. Now that's a big job, right? That's a big job. Jonas Salk is inviting us to really be the caretakers of all of the living systems that we have on. So that's a good challenge, a good evolutionary challenge. So the second intelligence is our linguistic intelligence. Linguistic. Now, we humans, by evolution, by the brain that we have an amazing brain that's evolved over 2 million years, and we have part of our brain that's called the neocortex. The neocortex is responsible for the language functioning. So here, then we are linguistic beings, which with this language, that we have that other animals do not have, not the chimpanzees, not the bonobos, not the gorillas. Sorry, they did not develop the neocortex like we did. Now, we are gifted. We have this amazing brain that's capable of language. Now, what can we do with language? It's amazing. We invent ourselves, first of all, our relationships, our cultures, our institutions, our social systems in language. Isn't that amazing? Pretty much everything. I mean, if you look at that, you go, that's a lot. Now, most of us do this unconsciously. We just go through life saying, hey, how are you? I'm Joe. Hey, Peter, how's it going? Hey, we're going to see the Warriors game today, or the Raiders, whatever is on Sunday. And we go through life talking and all doing all this stuff, but we forget that we are constantly inventing ourselves in our narratives and language and stories, just like we invent in the worlds that we live in, the societies. So all of that stuff happens in language. So therefore, I think language is important. If you want to be a critical thinker, like we humanists aspire to be, then we got to pay attention to language. Okay, so we use language to coordinate our actions. We also do that. Remember, Brian calls me and he says, Manuel, would you be able to talk on December 9? He said this to me about a month ago. I said, yes, I will. Then 2 weeks ago, do you want to come by BART or do you want to come by train? I think I'll take the BART. Will you take a lift? Would you get here? We moved, oh my God, we moved to a new location. This place. All of that took place where? In language, emails, phone calls, blah, 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 to coordinate to become effective. If we had not been effective, I would not be here today. I would be in the old room because I thought I knew where I was going, right? So we moved. So language is amazing for humans. We can, if we want to be effective, pay attention to language. And finally, we can declare better futures for ourselves and others. We have that power. We make declarations. This is one of the gifts of humans. We can say, I'm a humanist, or I care about the planet, or I care about the future of humanity, or I care about the human beings. That's a declaration. Not just the people that you love near you, your family, but the whole human family. You could say, I stand for justice, like Martin Luther King did, right? I stand for freedom, like Gandhi and other people did. Those are powerful declarations that people do. Now, they put their lives at risk sometimes. Sometimes it's risky to start making bold declarations, right? Like, we humans can get along with each other. Really? You want to stop all this fighting? Yeah. To stop killing each other? Yeah. People, well, you must be a utopian. You must be a dreamer. Yeah, I'm a dreamer, like John Lennon said, right? Remember John Lennon? He said, you may think I'm a dreamer, I'm not the only one, right? Okay, so, third intelligence, relationship intelligence. Guess what? We humans are social animals, tribal animals. We can't help it. This humanist community is a tribe. Whether you like it or not, it's a tribe you made up, right? I'm going to be a humanist. You can come here, we eat food, have coffee, get together on Sundays. Now, the good news is we love each other, and we take care of each other. This is a good tribe, and we invite other people, and we don't make it difficult for them. We don't say, oh, you got to pledge allegiance to the humanist flag. We don't do that, as far as I know, right? You just come here and say, hey, I want to be a humanist. Okay, have coffee, have lunch. Contribute $5. Okay, so it's a good tribe. We invent and shape our relationship with emotional intelligence. Isn't that amazing? We've been doing that for 2 million years, but it took Daniel Goleman from Harvard, psychologist, to give it a name, that we humans have emotional intelligence, right? So it took a Harvard professor to give it a name, but we always had emotional intelligence. Now, sometimes not so good, right? Sometimes we fight with each other, and my first profession was psychologist, by the way. And so I know a lot about what goes on in families, and talk about Christmas. Boy, Christmas brings up a lot of Okay, so we can design our relationships to be loving, powerful, creative, empathetic, and ethical. All of those things are possible. There's nothing here that is not possible. We can create loving, powerful, creative, empathetic, and ethical. There's a wonderful book by Jeremy Rifkin. Anyone read Jeremy Rifkin lately? Jeremy Rifkin is a great evolutionary thinker. He wrote a book called The Empathetic Civilization. And he bases his theory of the empathetic civilization on neuroscience, the mirror. Remember, we have this thing called the mirror cells in our brain now. I mean, therefore, I can see you. I feel that you feel not so happy. I say, hey, can I help you? I mirror you. Are you sad? What can I do for you? You want some coffee? You see, that's human. We have this mirror neurological stuff that says, oh, let me look at you. What do you need? Let me help you. Anyway, we can build relationships across cultures, tribes, and communities. Interesting, right? Now, some people don't know how to do that, so they kill each other. Tribes out there in Yemen. There's a war in Yemen, right? There's a war in Syria. I was just in Chile. It's a beautiful country. And guess what? They've been having a tribal, these things, tribal, with tribal animals. I just came from Chile, right? So before the Spaniards got there, who was there in Chile? The Mapuche. The Mapuche people been there for like 15, 20,000 years, right? In Chile. So the Spaniards come in and go, oh, nice country. I think I'll take it. And they did. They claim it for the Queen of Spain, Isabel. And the Mapuche said, wait a minute. This is Mapuche land. What are you talking about? So this conflict of the Spanish taking over the Mapuche land has been going on for 400 years. 400 years. It hasn't stopped. So they have a conflict of culture. They have a conflict of tribes. They have a conflict of worldviews. And they lack relational intelligence. Because the first thing the Spanish do is they go, we like what the Mapuches have. What do they have? Oh, they have copper. Oh, we need copper. We've got to make something with copper. Let's take their land. And they did. And then they go, what else they got? Gold? Oh, yeah, we like that too. And what else they got? Water. Nowadays, water is important. Oh, they got water. They got glaciers. That's a lot of water. We can sell that water. Put it in a plastic bottle, sell it as Chilean crystal clear water. And the Mapuches are going, stop. You can't do that. So last week, they were killing each other. Sadly, they were killing each other. So they've been doing this for 400 years. When is it going to stop? Okay? So we got to go beyond this tribal thing and also build relationship across the culture. So what does it take for the Mapuche and the Chilean government to come to some healthy, good terms? Well, they got to talk to each other. They got to trust each other. They have to dialogue. And they have to agree that they want to create a civilization that's good for both people. Well, they haven't been able to do that in 400 years. So, but it's doable, okay? So this is the third round they're going. Okay, finally we're one human family. This is a very important evolutionary perspective. We're one human family. So yeah, we are tribes, but genetically we are all Africans. Supposedly we're all the same descendants, 99.9. So when are we going to start to teach that? I hope soon. Okay, the next intelligence, psychological intelligence. So this brings it down to the person. So this is not just abstract out there, but with psychological intelligence, you could say, remember, I think it was Aristotle or Socrates who said, know yourself. One of those guys, right? Was it Socrates? I think it was Socrates who said, first thing you got to do when you wake up in the morning is know yourself. That was easy back then. Now it's more complex. Because we are sapiens, so we have to know ourselves as two things, sapiens and person. So take Manuel for example. So I am a sapien, right? I'm just like a member of the human family, sapien, with all the craziness and stuff. But I'm also a human, a person. So I have my name, see, Manuel. I'm different than you, right? I have a funny accent, and et cetera, et cetera. So I need to know myself. When people say, who are you? I say, oh, I'm Manuel. I was born in Colombia. I'm a consultant, right? That's all made up stuff, So, so know your own worldview. What's my worldview? I have a humanist worldview. I think science is good. I think people are good. I think we can get together. It may take work. I think we can build a better civilization. That is my worldview. We all have one, and sometimes we don't examine them. We have mental models. I have a mental model. I don't think humans should work more than 2 days a week. I mean, working more than 2 days is bad, I think. It's not good for you, and it's not good for the planet. We need to work less, enjoy more, celebrate more life, and people are going to say, well, you're a utopian. How are we going to do that? I got 2 kids in college. Everybody has 2 kids in college. I got to make a lot of money to put my 2 kids in college. Then I say, yes, you do. Make education free. Make education free for everybody, for life on the planet. Everybody gets life education, period. And they go, man, you're really a dreamer, right? But that's my worldview. That's my mental model. That's my narrative. Okay, know how to change and evolve your own mind. That's amazing. We can do it. We can change our own worldview. We can change our mind. It takes work, though. Sometimes you need a therapist. Sometimes you need a coach. Sometimes you need a friend. Sometimes you need a teacher, right? So, or a good book. A good book can help you change your mind. Change your, I read books and I go, wow, it's amazing. When I read Jonas Salk the first time, Jonas Salk, the scientist, I read one of his books called Survival of the Wisest. Isn't that a great book? Survival of the Wisest, not survival of the fittest. I read that book and go, yeah, this guy is amazing. So anyway, change my mind. And then finally know your own blind spots. Think about 10 more minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. So, know your own blind spots. We all have blind spots. I have my own blind spot. You have your own blind spot. Now, don't ask me what my blind spots are, because I don't know. Because I have blind spots. But if you're my friend, you may say, Manuel, come here. Let's have a cup of coffee. I got to share with you one of your own blind spots, right? And then you tell me what my blind spots, because you're my friend. And then I may say to you, what's your blind spot? And we talk and we help each other. Is that clear? Or you could see a therapist. That's okay too. They tell you what your blind spots are. You go, oh, you say you love your parents, but you don't visit them. For example, right? Then that may be a blind spot. Or you say you care about humanity, but you don't do X, Y, Z. So we all have blind spots. So we'll move on. The good news is we can know what they are. Once you know what they are, they're no longer blind spots. They go away. It's like deleting stuff. Okay, the 5th intelligence, systems intelligence. This one is really critical too for the kind of world we live in today. We live inside complex systems, so we need to pay attention to what kind of systems we live in. So we need to understand the key systems that shape our lives and futures. In the earlier slide that I put, remember there were 5 systems: worldview, culture, institutions, capitalism, and technology. Those are 5 key systems that shape humanity today. We need to understand our interdependence with other systems. For example, what is our interdependence with nature? About 2,000 years ago, some crazy guy named Plato and other people, the Greeks, they decided to say, no, we humans, we're better than nature. We're separate than nature. And we've been saying we're separate from nature for 2,000 years. It started with Plato, Heraclitus, a whole bunch of people, and then, of course, he was reinforced by a whole bunch of other people. Eventually, René Descartes was one of the famous guys. René Descartes, the Cartesian, who said, I think, therefore I am. He says, we are definitely better than nature. Nature is a machine. He says it's a machine. We are humans. We are separate from the machine, and, well, we are paying the price today. So we need to acknowledge our interdependence. We need to understand how to influence systems for the common good, including our political system today, which we need to really work on how to influence that political system and the economic system, because they both go together, right? It's amazing. Al Gore recently said, oh yeah, a democracy is owned by corporations. Well, it took him a while to recognize that. That a democracy was owned by corporations, and the Koch brothers, of course, let's not leave them out. We need to learn how to design better social systems for a better world. I think we can do a better job of designing social systems. For example, cities, right? We can design sustainable cities, garden cities, ecological cities. Just to give you an example, we can design a lot better stuff than we have today. We need to learn how to protect our ecology, finally, because without the ecology, we don't have a future, Scientific intelligence, this will be 6, and then there's one more, and that's it. So here, I think it's where humanism also has a lot to contribute. As you know, the humanist community is inspired, enriched by a great deal of scientific knowledge. We believe in, evolution, Darwin, a bunch of people. So we need to understand the scientific method, which most people don't understand, by the way. If you ask people to explain the scientific method, which says, you put on a hypothesis, then you test it, and then you test it again, and you prove it, and then you show it, and then somebody else tests it, right? There's like 4 steps in the scientific method. You ask the average person, what's the scientific method? They go, I don't know what I'm talking about. So we need to understand the scientific method. We need to understand the evolutionary structure of our universe and our rare Earth. This happens to be a very unique and rare Earth. Some people call it the Goldilocks planet. The Goldilocks. Not too hot, right? Not too cold. Just perfect, right? Not too hot. It's like Florida. Not too hot. Maybe not Florida. Silicon Valley. Not too hot, not too cold. Just perfect. That's why you folks live in Silicon Valley, right? So we need to develop, this is a big one. We need to know the difference between facts and fiction. Well, there was a recent article that says like a lot of Americans cannot distinguish between facts and fiction. I mean, isn't that amazing? How are you going to navigate the world? The whole point of this talk is how are we going to navigate the world to a better future if you cannot distinguish between facts and fiction, right? So we need to develop a disciplined mind, and we need to develop a systems view of life. Okay, now, so that's the scientific intelligence which we really need to design a better future. And then finally, the technological intelligence. So we are surrounded by technology nowadays in the 21st century. We need to design technologies that are sustainable and do not destroy our ecology and human life. So that's a big challenge for us. We're not going to get rid of technology, but we should be designing technology that is sustainable and do not destroy ecology and human life. So like, a lot of the stuff that we're doing today. We need to design technology with 0 waste. That's doable, the concept of 0 waste, and cradle-to-cradle process. Cradle-to-cradle process basically means, you build a car, you don't throw it in a junkyard. You build a refrigerator, you don't throw it in. You recycle it, you build it to be recycled, 100%. From cradle to cradle. And there are companies who are beginning to do that, and we need to do that, and that's doable. So you recycle, let's say, 90% of the stuff. Right now, you don't throw the car in the junkyard, or the tires, or any of that stuff. We need to understand and use technological tools to enhance personal development and make humanity flourish. Yeah, like laptops, computers for every child. We should make computers available to everyone. The internet is amazing. Like, I was in Chile talking about education. I said, you can get everything online, but you need a computer. And you need to learn how to learn. Because you could give somebody a computer and so what? So you got to teach them how to be, disciplined, scientific, and learn how to learn. And finally, we need to protect humans from becoming slaves to technological tools, which we slowly becoming slaves. You see a lot of people who, if you take their cell phone away, they get nervous. Where's my cell phone? Like when I'm teaching some classes on leadership, I said, you got to put your cell phones away, and they go, really? So, or their laptops or whatever. And nowadays, they even have retreats. A friend of mine went to a retreat. It's called a digital detox retreat. You pay $500 for the weekend so that you don't touch your cell phone. $500? That's amazing. I should do that. I should run a workshop on that, right? Digital detox. You can have phone calls, no emails. You got to talk to each other, have coffee, hug each other, be a hippie like we used to be, right? Hippies, right? In the 60s. You remember the 60s? we had no cell phones in those days. It was, everybody was like, hey, what do you got, man? Let's share. We're sharing and hugging and coffee and Haight-Ashbury. I lived in Haight-Ashbury, by the way, in 68, before I decided to become a psychologist. I was there experimenting, So, where the ideas came from, right? All right. The main thing is, some people think AI is going to save everything, right? Artificial intelligence. Even McKinsey wrote a big report recently that said AI will be good for society, Yeah, some things I think we should delegate to robots, but we need to protect ourselves from technology. And with that, I think that's the last slide. No, I think I have one more. And this is it. These are the 17 sustainable goals by the United Nations that says if we work on the 17 goals, we would definitely have a better future for humanity. And the reason I bring it up is because I think when we talk about designing a better future and applying our intelligences, I'm working on a project on this, a leadership project for this thing. And I put it up here because with the technology that we have today, we can definitely, for example, if you look at over here, renewable energy, number 7, we definitely have knowledge to make fossil fuels go away and make a more sustainable future. We have wind technology, solar technology, all the type of things. Quality education, number 4. We should make education free, give everybody a computer, free schools, no more I'm working to pay for 2 kids in college kind of stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And finally, if you look at the whole thing, you just pick one that is your favorite and commit to that. Commit to supporting that future. So it's an invitation for you to pick a goal, a UNDP goal, and say, I want to contribute to that. For me, the quality education is a big one for children. And so with that, I thank you very much.
So we're going to start Q&A. I just want to make sure everyone, a lot of folks get angry at me because I announce this every Sunday. You hold the mic like this, very close to your mouth. Close to your mouth. Here, it doesn't come out? Okay, and I'll try to pick up the hands as as you raise them. The problem is I go from person to person. If 7 people raise their hands, there's no first person. So I'll start in the front here, and not too long now.
Bob Wallace. Okay. I hate to be a wet blanket, but we've got 7 billion people increasing on the planet. 60 million voted for Trump. Even within families, we can't get along. So I don't have any hope, personally. If we're around in 1,000 years, I'd be really surprised. Extinction is the solution. Thank you. God has spoken.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm optimistic, but careful. I'm a careful optimist. That's all I have to say. Careful optimist. Yes, sir.
You may remember me, but I was exposed to the Club of Rome 45 years ago.
Right.
I have a master's degree in cybernetic systems, and Cybernetics 101, this is a graduate course. We covered all your points that you covered in 45 minutes in a whole semester.
Right.
Then we took those tools, and for another 6 years, I used that for getting my thesis and my master's degree in cybernetic systems. So
Perfect.
I'm
Thank you so
really
much.
exposed.
Thank you so much. I
You
mean,
betcha.
I had the pleasure of studying a little bit with people like Gregory Bateson, cybernetics, a little bit. So thank you. We need that. That should be part of the intelligence, cybernetic, with systems. Systems approach, cybernetics. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Carl. A very good talk here. As I listened to all your positive views of what we can do to be a better world, I just recognize all the greed we have on the planet, and we can't stop it. It's either capitalism or it's worse if it's communism. So we're stuck in the middle, and there's people, the greed is unbearable for me to watch.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if we ever can overcome that. It seems to be a human instinct. So good luck.
Yeah, you're right. There's a human instinct for ego fulfillment, ego or survival or greed, and that's part of our propensity. Maslow said it. If you don't feed the person first, if you don't take care of your basic needs, forget about thinking about humanity. So we do need to, fill our bellies and have coffee and have lunch, and then we can talk about right. But the good news is that we can make humanity basic needs take care of, and we're not doing it, but we could. So once we get humanity not to worry about food and shelter and water and education, then they would say, well, and now what do I do now? Oh, let's have a conversation. But you can't have a conversation with the enemy, right? If the enemy is going to take your food and you're going to take their food, it won't work. The human nature kicks in, the ego. So we have to evolve from ego to being. From ego to being. But you got to take care of the belly. You're right. Yes, sir.
Hi. I like and I would support, I agree, your ideas on some of these things like education and health care. However, I wouldn't go for free because then you have people abusing. But I would want to see them very inexpensive and affordable like they were in the 60s.
That's right.
When maybe we were both flower children.
You're right. No, there's truth to that. There's truth to what you're saying.
But my question is, how do you have any specifics on how to redistribute all this inequity in wealth that both the Bernie and the Tea Party people were railing against?
Yeah.
What's your solutions? Do you think people, for example, will decide that they should pay estate taxes? Do you think people in Silicon Valley should give up their tax credits and benefits? What are you doing, or what specific? How do you redistribute it?
Excellent. First of all, by the way, when I went to City College back in New York City in the 60s, it was $200 to tuition. $200. That's it. $200 tuition. City College, New York. Which one? Yeah. So there are things we can do. I'd say we need to become engaged in politics. We need to change one of the things that I think we need to change the narrative. The narrative, between, let's say, the neoliberal narrative, conservative of this and that, and we need to, like there's a young lady from the Bronx, New York. When I grew up in the Bronx, and she's in Congress now. You know who she is, right? She's hot stuff. You don't know who she is? Yeah, she's, Alexandra, she's got two last name. Diaz. Huh? Yeah. Well, she's going to be president in 10 years, I hope. I'll vote for her. She's hot stuff. She's, kicking up a storm in Congress. We need that. Where does she come from? The Bronx. Okay? So we need more of that. By the way, we need more females. Because we got to get out of this patriarchal culture that we're in. So, yes, sir.
I'm still waiting for an answer.
An answer to what? I just told you, we need to create a new political system. Yeah, and we have somebody in Congress. I just gave you an example. You can, I don't have all the answers. You don't expect me to give you all the answers. I just gave you a little bit of hope. Yeah, that costs more money. Sorry. Today you only get 7 intelligence for a cup of coffee. Tomorrow you get the plan B, how to put it into action. But yeah, no, I don't have all the answers, sir. I don't. I can only do what I can. I say, I voted November 6th. That's all I can tell you. And, I got choices to make, but I'm not going to not vote. And I'm going to give money to the right people, and I think we have better alternatives to capitalism. Look at some places in Europe have a better model. Yes, sir.
Curtis. I tend to see a lot of correlations with today's economy and our situation with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and how unions then became the new force that fought against inequality. What, in your imagination, do you think will be the next union, the next thing to fight against that? You're saying changing the system. What change do you see?
Well, from a political perspective, we need to change the political narrative that we're in today, which is, neoliberalism, or you could say Keynesian economics. We need to come up with a third alternative that is more about solidarity, more ecological. So we need to work on that. And there are people working on that, on a new narrative, because human beings are linguistic animals, and if you say, well, everyone here in Silicon Valley is basically influenced by neoliberalism, including Hillary Clinton. She's a neoliberalist, and whether we like it or not. So do we have an alternative? Yes, we do. Well, we need to share it and tell people about it, and tell them their better vision. That's in the political arena. But then we can make changes in the education arena. We can make changes in how we live, individual arena, etc. Okay. Yes.
So economically, yeah, I think that things are a lot darker than they used to be, and there has certainly been a few negative things said, and I can appreciate why that might be. I just wanted to point out that culturally, we've done a lot better in this day and age. We've got significantly more women being active in politics, and the younger generation, they've done a lot of tests to conclude this, is statistically much more culturally accepting.
Yeah.
We are a more culturally accepting community than we were even 10 years ago, 20, 30, as far back as you can look at it. So we have made some strides, some progress. The younger generations are focused on these kind of greater global goals. And so there's some progress, even though economically, certainly it feels like a backslide.
Yes, and I agree with you, and I would say that, for example, on these 17 goals, I was on a meeting yesterday where there were students, college students, who were looking at these goals as a way to choose their careers. Like, where do I want to focus? And so we had a conference yesterday at the University of San Francisco, and we had 25 students, and they were looking at these goals, and they were looking at and saying, oh, I want to go in this one, I want to go in that one, and we were mentoring them. to do that. So I think the young people, if they are given the proper, you could say, guidance, etc., can commit to making a better world. And we have made progress in the last 50 years. And cultural, you use the word culture. I mean, look, the Bay Area it's people come to the Bay Area for a reason. And one of the reasons is I can feel more free. I mean, he's using it like this back there. People come to the Bay Area for money, obviously, Silicon Valley and all that, but people also come here because they can express themselves. They can be more free to, find out who they are and what they want to do. I mean, it's no accident that the gay rights movement started in San Francisco, for example. Okay? So anyone else?
Okay, we have about, let's extend it another 5 minutes or
Yeah,
so.
that's it.
Does
Okay.
anybody else have any questions? I have a comment, but does anybody else have any questions?
It's hard to read some of those because of the color. If you
Yeah.
could please read them, and also what is SDGs? What does SDGs stand for? On the very top.
Sustainable Development Goals.
Sustainable
Development Goals, the
Thank you.
SDGs. Right.
Thanks.
That's it. Thank you.
If you could please read the 70, because some...
Yes, she asked if you could read them, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Take a little while, but...
You want me to number 1 is no poverty. Number 2 is no hunger. Number 3 is good health. 4, quality education. 5, gender equality, which we're working on. You'd be surprised how many countries girls don't have access to school. A lot of countries, girls are not supported to go into schools. 6, clean water and sanitation. 7, energy, renewable energy. 8, good jobs and economic growth. 9, innovation and infrastructure. 10, reduce inequalities. 11, sustainable cities and communities. 12, responsible consumption. 13, climate action. 14, life below water, the fishes. 15, life on land, like the forest. 16, peace and justice. And 17, partnerships for the goals, like collaboration between all the different groups. Like we have hundreds of NGOs working on some of these goals. And one of the things we need to promote is more collaboration between those. Okay.
I just have one thing. I want to find out how optimistic you are about whether wars can ever stop because of the greed among nations, and also among human beings on a day-to-day basis, the greed we have in our capitalistic society, which I don't know have a better plan than people who want to be ambitious. But the ambitious, unfortunately, includes crime for way too many people, and I'm not sure if we can ever get past that.
Well, there's certain things that are culturally and institutionally reinforced. I mean, you may have some people who are doing bad things, but when it gets to be culturally, institutionally reinforced, it gets worse. So we need to work on culture and institutions to minimize some of these propensities of humans. For example, I mean, maybe that some people want to express their anger with shooting, but do we need to give everybody an AK-47? No. So institutionally, we could say we are going to ban those weapons. Yeah, there will be crazy people who want to hurt other people. I don't think we can stop that. Can we stop nuclear war? Sure, if we eliminate nuclear weapons. We may not be able to eliminate war, but we may be able to eliminate nuclear war if we take away the nuclear weapons. So there are things we can do, and I think I do agree with Steven Pinker. Remember, I talked about Steven Pinker a couple of months ago. He wrote a book called Progress, and we made progress in humanity. We also need to acknowledge that we have made progress in certain areas. It's not complete. Yeah. Now, and let me just end by saying, I'm not going to say that what we're looking for is utopia. I think that's crazy to say we're looking for a perfect utopia civilization. No, human beings are highly unpredictable in many ways. It's good to have a little bit of challenge. So I would say we can build a better civilization, but I'm not saying we're going to have a perfect civilization or utopia. No, that's not going to work. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Oh, one last one.
Yeah,
Sorry.
This is very obvious to most of us, everybody here. The anxiety that we are experiencing, being in this area, trying to keep up at the pace. This is more than the Industrial Revolution, faster. I mean, change is every minute, every second. It's unbelievable, you know, what we're doing. It is so fast. It is so hard. Change is hard. You know, I mean,
We need each other. That's why we need community.
yeah,
Because to support
think
each other.
this is a good forum for it. You know, just, you don't need your cell phones to talk to people here, except if you want to look something up. But I think that the biggest thing is the anxiety. I went out there just to get a cup of coffee, and I said, well, the guy asked me what we're doing in here and what we're talking about, and I gave him a little synopsis, and I said, well, you come in, and he says, I have no time. I have no time. I need to do this. Everything's due yesterday. That is the valley here.
That's
and
why we need to work 2 days a
Francisco.
week. So we have time to talk to each other and relax and be each other and cook with each other and have sex and all that good stuff.
That's my wife.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, shall we give
All
a
right,
final
thank you
hand
so
to our
much.
speaker?
Thank you so much.